Welcome to the Forward Miami Show. My name is Damian Pardo. I'm your host. And to my left is Jonathan Casanas, JC, and he's on the board of Forward Miami and also a social media influencer. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We decided to do just kind of a table talk about things that are either bothering us or current topics. And well, I figured I would start.
Yeah,
So,
given that we're in this nice little new studio.
very cozy with our shirts.
We changed our whole platform, our whole
look.
Even our shirts. Did you guys notice our shirts?
Because you know what? Because we're listening. That's why.
That's what I think. You can't see it.
But today we're going to talk a bit.
Yeah,
so I'm going to start.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about corporations. And this has been like an ongoing thought I've been having for many, many years, especially since I work in one. But corporations in my lifetime have really gone in a different direction. When I first started working, I was working in a financial institution. And at that place, they paid for continuing education. They would subsidize my lunch. You had a retirement plan so that when you were 65, you could go ahead and count on getting 80% of your salary from that institution. The difference with Social Security, I don't think a lot of people understand this, but Social Security was always only supposed to be that 20% that you didn't get from your retirement plan. But as time has gone on, corporations have just taken those funds and delivered it back to shareholders, gotten rid of those kinds of programs, made employees pay more and more and more benefits. And little by little, while their stock value has gone up, the employees have had less and less and less. And I think today we're facing a retirement crisis, which is why I wanted to talk about this, because the far majority of people are not positioned for retirement. And it's really scary because they're kind of trained to live for today, live off of the credit card still, not have savings. And what are we going to do when we have a whole generation of people that are getting close to retirement, really need funds, really need healthcare assistance and all kinds of help? And then we also don't want to have government fill in that role.
Yeah.
So I see us kind of in a hard place.
Well, I mean, the only thing I can remember is a transition, like what's major about my parents and my experience with corporations or my retirement fund is that they have what's known as a pension. Right. Like I don't even know what that looks like. I've never been in an organization that subsidized my lunch. So that's nice that you got to live that life. But
not only did they subsidize my lunch, they used to have training programs, right? So you didn't have to go for an advanced degree. You could actually go and stay there. They would teach you for a year and then you would write and help them for another year. But essentially it was the equivalent like of a master's and they would provide that.
Right. And I know, I'm a recruiter, so I do see some kind of, they're like special courses that they would take, but they hold a value. Like if you work for some sort of financial institution, they have a training program that will carry on to the next institution you take. So even if you don't have an MBA, you have this kind of almost accredited coursing, which I don't think they provide that now anymore, unless you're doing some sort of, a promotion where you need to get trained for some sort of platform or something.
So I have a question for you then. Since you look at kind of how your parents have gone on, what do you think about for yourself? What are you doing to plan for that?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't think I was ever, it was never drilled into me that I needed to save for retirement, right? Like you always look at your grandparents and like my grandparents, in my mind, were getting help from the government. So Social Security. But what people don't understand is there are people living off of their Social Security when that should only have been a small percentage of their income. Or their savings or their retirement funds. My parents were great, but to be honest, they never really blew it into my head that I should have started a long time ago.
Okay. So
neither did schools. Like schools didn't tell me. Wait, no, this is true, right? Like if I knew what I know now and I have a child, like the first thing I would want them to know is that you need to start young. Like start, or even, and my parents weren't a lot, they didn't have the money to do so, or even start some sort of planning at a young age. And I know that you can put like money away or in some sort of IRA, or I don't know, you probably know better than I, where that will accumulate money. And by the time they're 18, they have tens of thousands of dollars already saved.
Well, that's another thing I've always kind of talked about. I mean, I think this should be part of a curriculum in all schools, financial literacy from kindergarten
Oh my God,
throughout, all the way
100%.
to college, because there is no reason that people do not know what a stock and a bond is.
I still don't really
Okay.
know.
Well, you and 99.9% of America. And there's no reason. And, you know, I hate to say this, this is super cynical and that's not my style, but I think sometimes people don't want you to know.
Yeah,
right? Because if you don't know and you can't read a financial statement, do you really know what your government is doing? Do you really know what anybody's doing? Do you really know what a corporation is doing?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't figure things out. It makes it very difficult.
Well, why teach like home ec or shop, but you don't teach us how to balance a checkbook? I thought that was very...
Or even how to make financial decisions, right? Buying your first car, buying your first house, making your first investments. What are the things you need to consider? How do you plan for retirement? You know, some people tell me, oh, I have no idea. And I always tell them, look, the easy way is this. How much do you live on? Oh, my family lives on $100,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you think that in the future you'll be able to get about 6%, let's say 5% for easy numbers,
to
get 100,000, well, what are you going to need in order to get that $2 million?
Right. Yeah. So no. Basically.
So it's not, well, that's what you know.
But how does the government benefit by you not knowing this kind of information?
No, I don't think that actually, that's another great point. You know, the government is always kind of painted as this, the horrible, big, bad government.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm in favor of efficient government.
Sure.
I'm in favor of using money wisely, but I think government is a necessary evil. To me, it's kind of benign. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just there, you know, and it provides some very needed services, some critical services. I think it's very much undervalued, kind of taken for granted.
Yeah.
Whereas that's what I mean by corporations. I think on the other side, corporations are under the radar. Nobody talks about them. You know, when you hear about, well, we need small government. If I were a corporation, I would be like, yes.
Right.
Because what does that mean for me? It means I'm not getting regulated. Nobody's really watching out, you know, for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's interesting being at a place like Miami, because here's where you get the communist thing, right? Like, well, if you're saying that, then you're a communist. You're about, no, not at all. In fact, I like to say enlightened capitalism, smart capitalism. I am the most probably anti-communist person in the world, but you need government, and government has an important role to play, a smart role to play. And in some ways, we're not using it.
Well, if not, we'd be the Wild Wild West. But there's like a double-edged sword too. I mean, I know that there's some, I think it's handled state to state, right? So if the regulations and taxes, if it's less than, like, let's say Florida has less taxes, less regulations than Georgia, then we're going to probably beat out Georgia in terms of bringing in large companies and bringing in those dollars here to Florida. But what you're saying is, even though it benefits the state, the employees aren't benefiting other than a job, right? Which is great, but they're not receiving these kind of benefits that you received in your time, even though they're making a lot more money and they're paying less taxes. So where is that money going?
Shareholders.
Right.
It goes to stock.
Right.
Which is why when we say, yay, look how great the stock market's doing. But, you know, what does that mean to us?
Right.
We probably have small bits of money in that market.
Right.
The real players are institutional. And those are the people kind of making the gains. I'm not, by the way, I'm not against any of this, but I am very much in favor of balance, and we are way out of balance.
Yeah.
I'm in favor, you know, like, I love mom and pop shops. I'm all in favor of entrepreneurialism. Those are the people who don't need regulations. Those are the people who need, but that's not, you know, people think and they make their arguments about mom and pop shops, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about these enormous organizations like Amazon and GE and, you know, all these huge entities that really don't pay tax and are not really paying their fair share in terms of helping our economy.
And why is it that that phrase, fair share, pay your fair share, why does it create such an uproar with both sides of the aisle? Like, what is it about it that people like or don't like? Because I would love to say pay fair share, right? But my fair share would obviously be less than the 1% fair share. So the thought is, I'm not paying the same amount as you are because I'm not making as much, right? So
Great point.
But why does it create such a stigma?
Because there's everything that motivates people. there's greed and fear. And when you say fair share, that person in the 1% is thinking, well, I pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Right.
But it might be like 0.5%
right.
for them. And we might pay, I don't know, but let's just to use a number, maybe $30,000. And to us, that's 25, 30%.
Yeah.
So it depends. Fair is a very subjective term. And great point that it, on all sides, it can be really misused.
Yeah, I stopped saying that. I stopped using the term because I do understand that there are exemptions. There's a way out of paying, more so for the corporation than it is for me, right? Like I can write off, gas maybe if I'm a salesman on the street, but they can write off so much more that they have more of an advantage. But at the end of the day, they're still paying more.
Yeah, but what concerns me is that the regular worker, not the mom and pop, because actually mom and pop, they can do advantages with their taxes. There's other things that they can do to be resilient. But the average worker, if you're finding yourself paying more of your benefits, if you're finding yourself with really not increasing salaries, you're still kind of in the same place. And then on top of that, you have municipalities like cities and governments that start increasing their fees for everything. So you're kind of getting hit from every single direction. You're getting hit from the corporations. You're getting hit from municipal. I mean, how much is a ticket? Like nowadays, a ticket is $250.
I was just about to say that. Like the fees now, the parking fees are astronomical. Like now, I mean, they started at $16, that I can remember with these parking meters. It's now like $36 to $50 something on your first offense, meaning within those 30 days if you don't pay it, because then it doubles thereafter. I think it's crazy. I think parking here is insane in Miami.
Or any little fee. You have something you want to do with the government, you want a permit, boom. You want this, boom. So everybody's doing the same thing.
Right.
Governments and corporations are passing everything down to people. And I think that's why so many people feel like they have the noose around their neck economically, because they don't see themselves advancing. They don't see themselves being able to save any money or even think about retirement in many cases.
And do you think like raising the minimum wage to 15, and I know that gets political, but do you think raising that would make a difference in these types of scenarios?
I don't know enough. I agree with you. I think there are lots of arguments around that. I think there should be somewhat of a safety number that and to me 15 sounds right. So I mean, just from I know,
but my point is, I feel like the moment let's say they approve it and they do the 15, I feel like everything is just gonna increase as well, right? The cost of living, these fees, gas. I think they're going to be like, oh, well, now you have $15 an hour in your pocket. Like, there's no way that you can afford it. And then boom.
Yeah, but to me, and that's part of it too. The 15 isn't just the only solution. Right. We're approaching it in that direction, but why aren't we approaching it from the corporation's direction?
Yeah.
Why isn't there some kind of effort among an alliance of all corporations to really go back? Because corporations a long time ago were almost maternalistic, paternalistic in the sense of taking care of their employees. You saw people that stayed in the same job for 30 years, 40 years, until they retired. It was a family.
Yeah.
And slowly, I think what happened is the evolution of corporations, they started getting bought out more and more and more. And as they got bought out, they cared less and less about it being a family.
Well, it's also competitive, right? Like, why does Apple have to compete? They're at the top of the food chain.
They kind of don't.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to take care of you. You want to work here.
Apple, Amazon could all be considered.
No,
they make their own terms. And by the way, if you want to talk about communism, like corporations are more communistic than anything I've seen in my lifetime. They tell you what you can say, what you can't say. They approve on your personal time, on your personal social media.
Yeah.
It's almost like the other extreme. Meanwhile, they do the diversity thing. So they put the little Latino bucket, and we're taking care of our African American employees and Asian Pacific Islanders, but then you see executive pay and CEO pay is I don't know how many times at this point.
Yeah.
50 times more.
Well, and they hide it with like a beanbag and
Right.
an area for you to de-stress.
Right. Exactly.
That's what it is.
A little
like,
stress ball.
like they have I can't remember which airline it is. They have an area for you to pray in if you wanted to. So you obviously feel included. And there are religions that you pray during the day, multiple times a day. They have a room for that, and that's their way of saying, of kind of cleaning their hands, washing their hands with that liability.
But they also get to lobby and use their money to make legislation freely, as if they were people. They have that right. I mean, Citizens United, I think, was probably the worst Supreme Court decision because it gave them the right to use money to specifically influence. To
like lobbyists, right?
To lobby and to whatever they want to see changed. They can apply unlimited.
So they can give money to a party or to a candidate?
Right. And they do a lot to make sure that the laws are benefiting them. But what surprises me most of all is that this isn't being talked about at all. This is just not talked about.
Right.
Corporations are not on the radar. What you hear all the time is government. Why aren't we talking about, well, corporate does this, corporate does. Government's very inefficient. Well, so is corporate. How are you tired or what of those 1-800 number things? I know. You call press 1, press 2, and you're representative. You can't get a person.
I mean, I guess this falls under like capitalism, right? Like, why am I going to yell at someone who's making money in a country that I want to capitalize on as well? So you always want to blame the government. I'm going to blame the government when regulating. I'm not going to blame the company who's trying to do exactly what I'm trying to do as an entrepreneur or otherwise, right?
But do you think the company is being an entrepreneur?
If you think about it, yeah, right. Like if you think about it, they had the same ideals as the one person did when they wanted to open up a coffee shop, right?
Who does the company answer to?
Well, the company now has shareholders if they're big enough. There's the public at large that's collecting on that.
Right. But I almost feel that companies have to answer to shareholders, and they just have to deal with perceptions of everybody else.
Yeah.
Including employees. So they will sell employees on ways to have them pay more of their benefits.
Well, I'm sure there's negative to that too, right? I'm sure there are. I mean, I know just 2 at the top of my head that didn't go public because of that. They thought it was just going to be too crazy, and probably would have been their downfall if they would have gone public. So they keep it private. They don't have to worry about those. They
don't have to answer to the public. They don't have to give their information.
No, they keep it very family oriented, if you will. Mm-hmm. And they maintain that, which you're allowed to do, right? But you're not going to be, a large corporation or battling along among.
But I almost think there's a way to combine that, right? Like if a corporation had, in addition to its shareholders, and some do have values that they actually measure those values as part of their economic performance. So it's not just the bottom line. It's not just what they're giving back to shareholders, but they also have community values that they respond to.
Oh, but who's gonna watch that, right? If it's not you and I, right? If it's us,
they're bored. I would hope. I mean,
yeah, but no, like, because it's all about money, right? There are people that are holding them accountable, but how powerful are those people, right? If I own, if I have 1 share of Tesla, who the hell am I to tell them you're not doing enough in the community?
Yeah, no, nobody.
Right.
That has to come from their board, and that has to be a board decision to have those values. But I think that a lot of people in the corporate world are very enlightened. I mean, they get it. If they want their corporations to do well, everyone needs to do well too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they're always as aware that as a whole, I mean, if you put them all together, our society is, I think, sometimes in a dangerous position because we have lots of people who are not economically prepared to live their life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and also like, talking about, the board, like who holds them accountable? Like who keeps them in check when it's just a group of boys, trying to take over the world? It's pretty tough to, other than
like Pinky and the Brain.
Yeah, that's it. Like they worry about their optics, but they don't, not personally, more about government, you know what I mean? And they can dress it however they want to dress it, as long as they're all, on the same side, because obviously they vote by numbers. So if they're all on the same page, then, and they all want to take over the world in the worst way they can.
They can, but I mean, we are living right now an example of, you know, the whole Facebook, Instagram, that entire monopoly, and who can do anything about that?
Right. Like, and we were just talking about these artists that take advantage of the optics and the social media, and you know, Maluma and Bad Bunny recently, like they dress very fluid in their in the gender spectrum, and they look like they would probably be, you know, gay guys, but they're not. In fact, they're straight, and people are now kind of upset, thinking that they are now kind of appropriating, you know, the gay culture. Like, and I feel like, you know, there are entities, there are corporations that do the same just for the sake of making money. Like, do you think that this is, you know, that relates, that that's a real thing?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, listen, this has been a hot topic for a long time too, because there are a lot of corporations who slap on a rainbow flag.
Yeah.
They have no policies. They don't do anything to back it up. They're pigs and they want business.
Right.
I mean, that's basically, you know.
And you can't blame them either, right? Like,
no,
and I try to play devil's advocate.
You can't.
But I'm like, I'm trying to make a dollar, you know?
You can't. And then we should also say there are a lot of really good companies that are doing all the right things when it comes to all that stuff. So it's not just about slamming, you know, indiscriminately.
Right.
But the issue you raise about appropriating culture, especially on issues of non-binary, is a really good one.
Yeah.
And also difficult to judge, because, you know, is it really appropriating? You know, non-binary has been around a long time, and indigenous cultures and many different other ways. Is that really gay people?
Well, then it's not, right? I don't think it is. But in this world, in this day and age that we're in now, right? Everything has a label, right? And they think they're not labeling themselves, but they are. By saying you're queer or non-binary or gender fluid, you're labeling yourself, you know? And I think nowadays, when you are Bad Bunny or when you are Maluma or Madonna or whatever, you know, you are the face of this label, right? You are now you're taking on the values of this perception. And what I feel like when it comes to Bad Bunny, this, you know, he's not a homosexual, he's not gender fluid, his lyrics really are about, you know, sleeping with women and things like that. But you're painting your nails, you're dyeing your hair, you're wearing crop tops, you know, you're wearing glitter and stuff like that. Knowing that you're a cisgendered male, straight male, there holds value to that, to the eye of a straight woman, right? A cisgendered woman. For us, we're like, work, mama, like, you look good, you know what I mean? Yeah. So now there's value in our eyes. So now what you're doing is now making money off what seems androgynous, right, or eccentric, but you're also now taking the dollars of the gay male who dresses like that and loves to pump.
So I can see that in a completely different way.
Sure.
I can see that as Bad Bunny is making non-binary queer culture accessible to the world in a way that gay people can't.
Right.
Queer people can't.
But it's not vocalized, right? Like, that's what I mean. Like, if you dress that way, awesome.
But maybe it doesn't need to be.
Well,
maybe when you vocalize it, you lose it. I mean, maybe he's doing it in the best way possible.
The mystery is what he's capitalizing on.
Listen, a lot of time, I remember there was a lot of discussion about gay men appropriating Black women's language.
Oh, 1,000%.
Okay, so what do you do about that? What are you supposed to do about that?
No, I mean, listen, if the Black community has nothing to say about it and they don't take offense to it and they love that appropriation, then fine.
But I can also see how if you're the Black community, you're like, awesome. You know, like it's getting us a wider acceptance, a wider understanding of our struggle of
1,000%.
You know, so that's what I mean. That is kind of like a double-edged.
Well, listen, I don't have a super issue with Maluma or Bad Bunny, you know, dressing that way. I just have friends.
Going to his concert,
but I do have friends. Yeah, well, you know, you gave him your money.
I did Maluma,
but there are people who are upset about it because there's been no help towards the community. There's been no partnerships with the community. There are no gay artists on his album or in his music, or there's been no talks
But
about.
how do you know that? Like, how do you know that there are no?
No, it's a real thing. I mean, in the industry, it's not known that you could be in the same writing studio as these people, especially when they're Latino males. That there's going to be one, either women or two gay males. And
I find it hard to believe that he would not have a gay or LGBTQ artist in his in any of them.
Well,
I mean, that's just
name one.
No, I mean, I don't know them well enough.
That's my point. But I'm saying I have artists in the industry that are fighting for the same spot, that want to dress that way, but the label tells them, no, you're too gay. You're too feminine to make it.
But I think that's just life. I mean,
sure, but can you imagine, can you maybe put yourself in the shoes of someone who's trying to make it, who's just as talented, who can dress just as spicy as a
well, I mean, I
Bunny.
think just as talented can be subjective. I think a lot of it is time.
But no, just for the sake of argument, they're both just as talented. They're both just as attractive, and one is straight, wearing gayish looking clothing or gender fluid clothing. One does the same, but one's actually gay. And the label tells this one, the gay person, nah, you're a little too feminine. It's a little too much for this market right now. But then why is this person so successful, making so much money off of the same style that the gay male was?
Listen, because they're not there yet. I mean, this story's happened in Hollywood, 100%. All over the place, right?
100%. There
was a time when Black women couldn't get in a role. Any Latino couldn't even get on.
Sure, yeah.
If you got on, you were just from LA. They represented everybody as, one culture.
That's a true point.
Yeah, I mean, I think with time, that's definitely going to change.
Hopefully. I mean, listen, like the reason why, a lot of the reasoning is me growing up and I try to maintain like my butchness was because I felt like people weren't going to accept me for always queening out. Like I love to be feminine and play with that. But I have friends that probably wouldn't have been my friend if I was straight feminine, the whole time. And they were, their thought to me was, oh man, like I've never had a friend like you. Like I've never, like it wouldn't, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have known this community because like you're actually straight acting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people got that straight acting pat on the back thing.
Yeah.
But you know what? You get to a point in life where you're just, this is who I am and whatever.
Right. But
stays.
But when I'm trying to make $1 and the next person who's acting like me, who is not me, capitalizes on it. Yeah, I can see.
Well, speaking of making $1, since you said that your parents.
Oh my God.
What are you doing now? Right. Because you're no longer under your parents' umbrella and you're.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, the pandemic has helped me really kind of focus on that.
That's great.
Definitely savings. Right now I'm handling my debt. So those are now starting to be paid off.
That's great. What are you doing to try to do that?
So I'm settling with my credit cards. We have talks with the credit card companies.
That's excellent.
Yeah, because you know what? Like I'm done with just maintaining balances and continuing to pay. I feel like I'm paying the man just interest. You know what I mean?
You are.
And I'm like, yo, you know what? Like I need to start thinking about my longevity. And me paying a credit card, it just doesn't make sense. So let me go talk to these companies and start.
Any
settling.
tips? Any tips?
Do it now. Do it now before.
But I mean, in your negotiation, is there anything you found helped more?
No, I didn't know that it was possible, right? Like it was either pay it off or always have a balance. But there is a way out. There are companies out there that actually do this.
So you didn't even know you could call and actually negotiate?
No, I didn't know that. You could even negotiate your interest rate. Like your APR could change if you just by one phone call say, hey, like this is too high for me. I'm not gonna be able to pay this off. Help me out. And they would, for 6 to 12 months, actually lower your interest rate.
Wow, that's great.
I didn't know that.
No, I didn't either.
I didn't know that. So yeah. Great. So but if you're not able to save that extra cash because you're paying it interest, like then you need to fix that first. Fix that high debt that you have, and then that money now that you're putting away, that goes into savings or put it in stock or something so it works for you. So 10 years from now, there's a little chunk of change that you have.
Yeah, I would say save it. Don't put it in stock.
Oh, bueno. You would know more than I.
No, I mean, I just mean unless you have so much of it. But I think it's always good to try to have 6 months of your salary. If you
you're saying because of the risk.
Yeah, because you might lose that too.
Right.
So now you saved all this, you did all this effort, you put it in the stock at the wrong time.
Yeah.
That tanked. You actually need it now because you didn't save enough, and now you're selling when you shouldn't. At the worst possible.
Sure.
So it's like a
or blowing
spiral.
your stimmy check, like those stimulus checks. People should really put
Stimmy
that.
check.
Yeah, them little stimmies. They should put that to work. Like instead of blowing it on partying, like even though you may not have needed it, like put it to work or save it. Like people are really not being thoughtful about that extra cash that they have, and that's what I'm doing now.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's how you start. You got to start somewhere, and you're starting.
I'm late,
you're young,
yeah.
So it's good, you know. No,
Oh, yeah.
It's never too late. That's the other thing. It's never too late.
Well, the one thing that because I had a friend who put some money in stock for their child, and are you allowed to do that? Can you put money? Right. And so, you know, when his child turns 18, they're going to be
rich.
Yeah. They're going to have some cash.
Well, as long as there's no correction.
You should, you should definitely start young. That would be my tip, man. But if you haven't started, start now. Save, because no one's going to help you out but you. Like,
that's a great lesson.
Who knows?
Nobody's going to help you out but you.
Who knows if we're even going to have Social Security by the time I retire, you know?
We will.
Yeah.
We will. We will. I mean, I kind of think we have to, because it's only 20% of your income. That's not a lot.
Yeah.
You know, surviving on whatever, $24,000, $26,000 a year, that's not possible. And in a place like Miami where you have really high expenses, that's even less.
Well, I feel like even with the consolidation that I've done, it just always feels like it's never enough. Like everything still, you know, feels like, you know, like I'm just getting by, you know, and I want to stop feeling like that. But it's also the city you live in, right? Like if you live in a high rise, you're going to pay high rise prices, buddy. You know,
you sure are.
If you get a Mercedes, you're going to pay Mercedes prices. Like, and that's another thing that people in Miami like tend to forget. Like, what's a Civic over a Mercedes, man? Like, it just takes you from one place to the other. I know people that just Uber everywhere and end up paying less than they do on a monthly car payment and insurance.
Yeah.
Like they just, you know,
the first time I had my car paid off, it made me so happy that that's the space I wanted to live.
I know.
You know, the rest of my life.
You know what I did? I got another car. I paid off my car and got another freaking car. Who does that? Me.
And now in hindsight, would you do it again?
No, no, my car was fine. I had a Mustang.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. That I called Black Beauty.
Black Beauty.
Black Beauty. She was paid off and I went and got another car. That was probably the biggest mistake of my life. Only because that money that I was spending on a new car, I could have been putting away or putting to work, like we were talking about.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
But you know what? When you're young, like you just want to live your life and live in a drop top with some rims, 2 subwoofers in the back, you know, and trying to impress everybody. When at the end of the day, like you're the one that's hurting yourself.
That's really good observations and good advice, because people need to understand that. Like,
yeah,
it's gonna come back to you. It just always comes back to you. So you're better off kind of just being responsible.
Do you think like the LGBTQ community has that down over, you know, the rest of the world?
No, so you mean that they're worse than the rest of the world? Or?
Yeah, but I mean, I think like I feel like the lesbian community is pretty good with, you know, their finances. The gay community kind of throws their money away.
When you say gay male.
Gay male. Yeah, I think lesbians and gays, males.
Yeah.
I know women now are gay women. So I'll respect that. But I think in terms of gay males, since now we're having children, but because we don't have those extra, I'm gonna call them expenses, dependents, like we
expenses, appendages.
We throw our money away in those things that other communities wouldn't.
Yeah, I definitely think in general, gay men are very bad with those issues. I do. I think there's a tradition there that's interesting, by the way. I think because there was so much discrimination always in the 70s, you know, 80s, all that. It's a community that likes escapism. So I mean, it always struck me that whenever we had this horrible threat, like this big legislative threat, what was our answer to everything?
Do drugs?
A party. You know, there's AIDS, the whole community let's do a fundraiser party.
Right.
Let's do the white party. That is our eternal response.
Also any excuse to do a party.
Yeah, to do a party. But it's also part of escapism, right? Like if things are so hard, and we're not the only community. Look at every other minority community.
Oh, no, I know.
It's just easier to escape out of there mentally. And how do you do that? Drugs. How do you do that? Spend money on yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I need a brand new whatever. right?
Pair
And
of
then
boots, pair of white boots to go with my white wings.
Whatever it is.
To dance on a speaker.
That's on
Yeah,
a
$1,000
speaker.
for shoes to
And
dance
you
on a
use it
speaker.
for a day,
Yeah.
you know, and then half of them try to take it back. And then, you know,
That never worked for me. I never tried that.
No, but unfortunately, that's what happens. And that's how people get into these economic holes. Credit cards are the worst part. Two things that are horrible: credit cards and those easy cash your check places that I think they should be illegal.
Yeah, because you end up in a bigger hole.
They're taking a big cut. They take a cut of your check just to give it to you a couple of days, you know, ahead. And yeah, and then the credit cards, all kinds of fees, and once they ruin your credit or hurt your credit, then good luck. Because now on top of everything else, you have to restore your credit.
Well, I don't think, I mean, I know quite a few people whose credit has been ruined, and they bounce back from it so easy. And I'm not saying like, you know, don't see it as a danger.
You're not saying to go out and ruin your credit.
No, I'm saying don't give up if your credit is bad. There are
not at all. You can bring it back very quickly. You know, a lot of times people have asked me about foreclosures. Oh, should I go ahead and foreclose my house? I always advise against that. Even no matter how bad things got, if you had a foreclosed property and you ended up paying it, that other lender eventually will look and ask the question, did you eventually pay it or did you go into foreclosure? And if you tell them, I never went into foreclosure, that's better. That's super better.
All right.
That speaks to character. It means you have character.
We only have like a minute left. Any final thoughts on your...
No, I love our table talk because it went to finance and all
it did. I was a little scared about it.
I wasn't sure where it was going to go.
I was like, I don't want to talk about that.
I mean, we went from like Bad Bunny to like, you know, so good. No, I'm happy. I think it's good. I'm glad we covered those topics.
Me too.
I thank everybody out there. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week with another Forward Miami show.
Bye.